I think Chris Carter never imagined it would last longer than 5 years. And so he had an ending for the series in mind, but that ending was predicated on the show going 5 years. And instead, the show took off and became hugely popular, and we ended up just doing the movie after 5 years, and the show had another 4 years of life. And so he designed this conspiracy, and it kept growing and growing and growing. And I think the truth is, it just, after a certain point, it became huge, and there were so many doors to this room that it was impossible to close them all.
Agent Scully, est-il exact que vous et Mulder avez couché ensemble et que vous avez eu un enfant de lui?
Objection!
Merci. Témoin suivant.
For us, the writers of the show, we understood the whole thing, and we knew what it all meant, and there was very little confusion in our minds about everything. But I think for the viewer at home, it was almost impossible to keep track of everything that was going on. But having said that, I think it's astonishing that people did stay with the show and were willing to keep watching, even though there was many things that they didn't understand.
À Roswell, ils capturèrent des extraterrestres dans l'épave du vaisseau spatial. Ils récupérèrent divers éléments de leur technologie et en inspectant leur base de données, ils découvrirent que ces extraterrestres nourrissaient le projet d'une colonisation de la Terre.
Est-ce que tout cela nous mène quelque part?
I think, you know, at the end of the 7th season, when David Duchovny wanted to leave, I think that was probably a very logical time to end the series. But the truth is, none of the people who mattered wanted to stop. They wanted to continue with the show. And I very reluctantly agreed to go on because these other people wanted to go on. And there was an attempt at that point to really create a new show, introducing Robert Patrick's character and then subsequently Annabeth Gish's character. And I think in the end it proved impossible to make that changeover, because I think the audience was so invested in Mulder's quest, David Duchovny's quest. I loved doing that show. I had enormous fun and I was very proud of it. I think it took a while for that show to figure out exactly what it was, because the pilot episode was kind of dramatic, and then the decision was made to go more comedic, and I think it became too comedic. And then I think by the end, it actually had a really good balance of comedy and drama. And it was very close about whether it was going to go on. And the network, unfortunately, decided not to go on with the show, which, you know, I think was a mistake. And what they replaced it with did not do better in the ratings than what Lone Gunmen was doing. But they gambled that they'd find something that, you know, performed better commercially. Oh yeah, we had a very elaborate mythology worked out for the Lone Gunmen and for the characters we'd introduced specific to that show. And it's interesting because the X-Files was about the paranormal and aliens, and Lone Gunmen was about greed and international duplicity, arms dealers, terrorists, things that actually would have been very timely and topical in the world we're living in today. And the pilot was about a 747 flying into the World Trade Center, so it was completely of a piece with the time we're living in now. But anyway. I worked on this Michael Mann show for the past 6 months. I left now. It's called Robbery Homicide Division, and it was a complete change of pace. Could not have been more different from what I was doing on the X-Files. And I was very excited to have the chance to work with him because I'm such a huge fan of his films.
And you're not working on the season?
No. Ironically, the thing that I admired most about him was the thing that ultimately for me wasn't satisfying about working on the show, which was that it was completely his vision. Everything was his vision and his decision, and I respect that and admire that. But after a while, especially after my experience on the X-Files, where I had a lot of freedom to do what I wanted to do, it just wasn't satisfying to serve as an executor of his ideas, and so I very respectfully decided to leave. No, I don't think it had a beautiful death. I think the last 3 years of the show were very difficult because we didn't know each year whether it was the end of the show. And we literally had to write and film the season finales for episodes season 7 and season 8, not knowing. And so no, it couldn't really be a beautiful death. And when Chris made the decision in season 9 to end the series, I think we then came up with sort of the summation and conclusion that you could come up with, given the fact that we'd had 2 seasons where it was almost over, it wasn't over, that we'd had these new characters, and then David Duchovny was coming back. I mean, it was a very awkward situation to be in.
On a toujours fait ce travail de notre mieux, et on le fera jusqu'à la fin.
Ce n'est pas votre compétence qui est en question. Ce sont les règles du jeu qu'il contrôle.